My lord, I'm so glad to hear that you're leaving now and that you'll soon be out of Antioch. The king knows that you have found the meaning of his deadly riddle. Let's face it, you have a terrible poker face and it's in your eyes. In fact, there's no disguising it. It really comes as no surprise to me to find that Antiochus might even send an assassin to kill you, thinking that you planned it all along to reveal his sinful relationship with his own daughter. I don't know about you, but I see it now. The way he's befriended you, it becomes so clear that he could read through your insincerity. And I have to admit, at first, the thought of you winning his daughter for your bride had me all starry-eyed. But I was taken in too. You'd think that I would have known by now and been able to see that we were wrong about his intentions. But now, sure as the sun will leave the sky, the lie is over. You've got to get back aboard your ship, and by morning, make sure you're gone like the tears that used to tide me over. And even though you're on your own now, when you get back inside your room aboard your vessel, remember that Helicanus, your second in command, is probably back home in Tyre and claiming victory for you. So trust no one else in Antioch. There is no one here you can use now to help you. But I do believe one thing is sure, my lord. Despite the many perils that lie ahead of you, I know it will be worth it. How can I be so certain that everything will work out? All I can say is, only time will tell. Cecil B. DeMille's classic 1956 epic film, The Ten Commandments, follows the life of Moses from the time he was born until he led his people into the Promised Land nearly 120 years later. Naturally, in order to do this, the movie skips over large gaps of time in order to cover the entire story. So, by comparison, Pericles, Prince of Tyre's 14-year gap between Acts 3 and 4 seems like just a drop in the bucket. So, let's take a look at the plot. Gower narrates each act with the prologue. The play opens in the court of King Antiochus of Antioch, Syria, who has offered his beautiful daughter's hand in marriage to any man who answers his riddle. However, those who fail to do so must die. The riddle reads as follows. I am no viper, yet I feed on mother's flesh, which did me breed. I sought a husband in which labor I found that kindness in a father. He's father's son and husband mild. I, mother, wife, and yet his child. How they may be, and yet in two, as you will live, resolve it you. Pericles, the young prince and ruler of Tyre in Phoenicia, hears the riddle and instantly understands its meaning. Antiochus and his daughter are engaged in an incestuous relationship. If Pericles answers incorrectly, he will be killed. However, if he reveals the answer, he will still no doubt be killed. Pericles implies that he knows the answer and asks for more time to think before revealing it. Antiochus grants him 40 days, but then employs an assassin to kill him. However, Pericles flees the city in disgust in order to save his own life. When Pericles returns to Tyre and informs his trusted friend and advisor, Helicanus, about what happened in Antioch, he advises him to leave the city because he's certain that Antiochus will seek his life. Pericles puts Helicanus in charge in his absence and sails to Tarsus, a Turkish city inflicted with famine. The generous Pericles offers Cleon, the governor of the city, and his wife Dionysa, the corn from his ship to save their people. After the famine ends, Cleon and Dionysa thank Pericles profusely, and he continues on his journey. A terrible storm wrecks Pericles' ship, and he washes up on the shores of Pentapolis. He's rescued by some poor fishermen who inform him that good King Simonides is holding a tournament the next day and that the winner could receive the hand of his daughter Thaisa in marriage. At the same time, one of the fishermen drags Pericles' suit of armor on shore that very moment, and he decides to enter the contest. Although his equipment is rusty, Pericles wins the tournament and Thaisa, who is very much attracted to him. King Simonides initially pretends to oppose their union, but soon insists that Pericles and Thaisa wed, even though he does not yet know that Pericles is both a prince and a king. Noblemen from Tyre send a letter with news that reaches Pericles in Pentapolis, saying his people will revolt unless Pericles returns, and he decides to go back to Tyre with his pregnant wife Thaisa. Once again, a terrible storm arises at sea, and Thaisa appears to die during childbirth to Marina, so named because she was born at sea. The superstitious sailors insist that Thaisa's body be thrown overboard to calm the storm. Pericles begrudgingly agrees and decides to stop at Tarsus first because he fears that Tyre is too far away from Marina to survive the sea voyage in the storm. Fortunately, Thaisa's casket washes up on the shores of Ephesus, near the residence of Lord Cerimon, a physician who successfully revives her. Believing that Pericles died in the storm, Thaisa decides to become a priestess in the temple of Diana. Meanwhile, Pericles departs Tarsus in order to rule Tyre, leaving Marina in the care of Cleon and Dionysa for 14 years. However, because Marina grew up even more beautiful than Cleon and Dionysa's daughter Philoten, Dionysa plots to have Marina murdered. But the plan is prevented when pirates kidnap Marina and bring her to Mytilene, where they sell her to a brothel. While there, Marina manages to keep her virginity by convincing each of the men she meets, including Lysimachus, the governor of Mytilene, that they should seek virtue instead. Worried that she is ruining their business, the brothel owners eventually rent her out as a tutor to respectable young women, and Marina becomes famous for teaching music and other refined talents. After 14 years, Pericles returns to Tarsus looking for his daughter, but the governor and his wife claim that she has died. Consumed by grief, he takes to the sea, but as Pericles continues to travel, he comes to Mytilene, where the governor Lysimachus tries to cheer him up by sending for Marina. As they compare their sad stories, both Pericles and Marina happily realize that they are father and daughter. When the people of Tarsus learn about the evil Cleon and Dionysa, they revolt against their rule and kill them for their wickedness. The goddess Diana appears to Pericles in a dream and tells him to come to her temple in Ephesus. His ship sails there, where he is reunited with his long-lost wife, Thaisa. Lysimachus marries Marina, and they go to Tyre to rule, while Pericles and Thaisa return to Pentapolis after learning that King Simonides has passed away. And in the end, good triumphs over evil. When we return, we'll take a look at some of the remarkable characters in Pericles, Prince of Tyre. All right, let's take a look at some of the characters in this play. We'll start with the title character. And although the play is called Pericles, Prince of Tyre, since his father's death, Pericles is also the reigning king. He has good instincts, loves a challenge, and seeks out contests, even those that might result in his own death. Like posthumous Leonatus in Cymbeline, it seems as if the gods had decided to put Pericles through the ringer before eventually allowing him to enjoy utter bliss at his family's climactic reunion. Next, we have his ancient and mentor, Helicanus. He is completely loyal and trustworthy, and Pericles entrusts the reign of Tyre to this regent in his absence when he travels in order to elude King Antiochus's assassins. King Antioch, or Antiochus, is an extremely powerful ruler who, upon the death of his wife, enters into an incestuous relationship with his daughter, who is unnamed in the play. Antiochus will stop at nothing to conceal their dirty little secret. Good King Simonides of Pentapolis holds the contest so that knights from all over can vie for the affections of his beautiful daughter Thaisa, And although he initially pretends to oppose her desire to marry Pericles, it is only a test to see if the Prince of Tyre is worthy of her. Cleon and his wife Dionysa are the rulers of Tarsus. When we first see them, the land is suffering from a severe famine, and Pericles comes to their aid. However, when they have the opportunity to return the favor and raise Pericles' daughter Marina up in his absence, Dionysa hires a murderer to kill her because Marina is far more beautiful than Dionysa's unseen daughter Philoten. Marina is the daughter of Pericles and Thaisa, who was so named because she was born at sea. She escapes Dionysa's plan to murder her when she is taken by pirates and sold to brothel owners in Mytilene. However, because she remains chaste and virtuous throughout her servitude, she converts the brothel customers to seek out holy existences. And finally, there's Lord Cerimon of Ephesus, a skilled physician who is able to revive Thaisa, who was thought dead after giving birth to Marina at sea and tossed overboard in a sealed coffin during the storm and washed ashore at Ephesus. Cerimon represents a purely good character, crucial for the happy ending, and is rewarded for his efforts. When we return, we'll look at some of the plot devices and memorable scenes from Pericles, Prince of Tyre. Before I really got into studying Shakespeare, there were some plays that I knew and some plays I didn't know at all. Of the ones that I was completely unfamiliar with, Pericles, Prince of Tyre is absolutely my favorite. If you ever decide to write a play and you need a surefire formula of plot devices to make it a success, look no further than Pericles, Prince of Tyre. It's almost as if Shakespeare threw in every plot device there is for this one. We've got 2 sea storms, a shipwreck, a forbidden incestuous relationship between a king and his daughter, a deadly and risky riddle, knights competing in a contest to win a princess's hand, singing, dancing, and music, a famished kingdom, assassins, a separated king and queen, pirates, fire and brimstone from above, an evil envious queen, a collection of brothel managers and their patrons, human sex trafficking, attempted rape, a converted governor, noble heroes, loyal friends, a miracle-working doctor, seemingly hopeless situations, a chaste underage virgin enslaved in a brothel, yet persuasive enough to ruin its business, an incredible family reunion after a prophetic message from a god, the discovery of a long-thought-dead queen with her husband and daughter, and a happy ending with a redeemed governor and a beautiful princess. I defy Hollywood to ever come up with a monumental production better than this. Although this play is listed as a comedy, it's technically a tragicomedy, as it has many scenes in both categories. Today, it's more often referred to as a romance play, although that term wasn't used in Shakespeare's time. One of the most memorable scenes takes place when Marina is sold into prostitution. Although she's only about 15 or 16 years old at this point, she excels in her ability to influence and persuade, not only the proprietors and the customers of the brothel, but also converts the governor of Mytilene to lead a virtuous life, and he eventually becomes worthy of her hand in marriage. Let's look at Act 4, Scene 2, when she first enters the brothel and defends her chastity to the madam of the house named Baude. Alack, that Leonine was so slack, so slow. He should have struck, not spoke, or that these pirates, not enough barbarous, had but overboard thrown me for to seek my mother. Baude asks, "What lament you, pretty one?" She says, "That I am pretty." "Come, the gods have done their part in you." "I accuse them not." "You are light into my hands where you are like to live." Marina says, "The more my fault to escape his hands where I was to die." Baude, "Aye, and you shall live in pleasure." "Yes, indeed you shall, and taste gentlemen of all fashions. You shall fare well, you shall have the difference of all complexions." "What, do you stop your ears?" And Marina asks the important question, "Are you a woman?" Now, this is a similar question that Lady Macbeth says to her husband when he's losing his nerve. "Are you a man?" This is to emasculate him. Iago also says the same thing to Othello when he starts to become insecure. Are you a man? Here she says, are you a woman? What would you have me be if I be not a woman? An honest woman or not a woman? Marry, whip the gosling. I think I shall have something to do with you. Come, you are a young, foolish sapling and must be bowed as I would have you. Marina says, the gods defend me. And Baud says, if it pleads the gods to defend you by men, then men must comfort you, men must feed you, men stir you up. In addition, Pericles' discovery of King Antioch's sinful relationship with his daughter, King Simonides putting Pericles on the hot seat before giving his consent to marry his daughter, and Lord Ceremon's successful attempts to revive Thaisa are some of the most memorable scenes in the entire play. And of course, the reunion scenes of Pericles and Marina and of Pericles, Thaisa, and Marina at the end of the play are also magnificent. One of the strongest themes in this play is good's triumph over evil. Right off the bat, Shakespeare uses ancient poet Gower to set the tone for this epic adventure. He starts off by saying, to sing a song that old was sung, from ashes ancient Gower is come, assuming man's infirmities, to glad your ear and please your eyes. It hath been sung at festivals, on ember eves and holy ales, that's holy days. And lords and ladies in their lives have read it for restoratives. This Antioch then, Antiochus the Great built up the city for his chiefest seat, the fairest in all Syria. I tell you what mine authors say. This king unto him took a peer, who died and left a female heir, so buxom, blithe, and full of face, as heaven had lent her all his grace, with whom the father liking took, and her to incest did provoke. Bad child, worse father, to entice his own to evil, should be done by none. But custom what they did begin, was with long use accounted no sin. The beauty of this sinful dame made many princes thither frame, to seek her as a bedfellow, in marriage, pleasure's playfellow, which to prevent he made a law, to keep her still, and men in awe, that whoso asked her for his wife, his riddle told not, lost his life. So for her many a wight or man did die, as yon grim looks do testify. What now ensues, to the judgment of your eye, I give my cause, who best can justify. We see a lot of temptation in this play, replete with serpents and vipers. The evil Antiochus cannot resist his incestuous lust for his daughter, and in a famous non-scene, we hear about the two of them being struck by a firebolt from above because the gods are angry for their sin. Wicked Dionysa also tempts her spineless husband Cleon to reluctantly go along with her assassination attempt on Marina and her poisoning of Leonine the assassin. Still, the two of them are punished for their evil deeds when they are burned in their palace by the angry subjects after the truth is revealed. We also have the pure and virtuous Marina, who escapes an assassin's attempt, is captured by pirates, and also subjected to a life of child slavery in a brothel. Yet she emerges unscathed despite all of the threats, temptations, and evil surrounding her. She is rewarded for her faithfulness by being reunited with her father and becoming heir to his kingdom, ruling alongside her converted husband Lysimachus. And please note that her preservation in the brothel is not unlike the biblical story of God's faithful servant Daniel in the lion's den. There are many biblical correlations in Pericles, Prince of Tyre, including resurrections. Thaisa is resurrected from her death at sea by the good and learned physician Lord Cerimon. She is also reborn at the temple of Ephesus at the end of the play. This is similar to Jesus raising the ruler's dead daughter in St. Matthew chapter 8, verses 18 to 26. Marina is also reborn after she survives a failed assassination attempt, life as a virgin enslaved in a brothel, and reunited with her kingly father. I heard a Harvard professor say, I'd prefer a plausible impossibility to an implausible possibility. That makes me think of cloning dinosaurs from DNA collected from the bodies of prehistoric mosquitoes. It may be impossible, but it certainly is a plausible concept for a science fiction novel or a movie series like Jurassic Park. So think about this. Not only is Pericles the sole survivor of a fatal shipwreck, but the only other item to be washed ashore is his suit of armor. You could also say that Pericles himself was reborn and rejuvenated after being reunited with his family. It's very reminiscent of the story of Jonah in the whale from the Old Testament, in which Jonah was cast out on the dry land. At the feast after the contest in Pentapolis, Pericles selects a lower seat at the banquet and is told to go up higher. This is advice straight out of St. Luke chapter 14, verses 8 to 11. Pericles plans ahead before his voyage to Tarsus and saves the starving city from famine with stores of corn. This is very similar to Joseph interpreting Pharaoh's dream in Egypt and planning ahead with stores of corn for other cities. We see lots of redemption scenes in Pericles, especially from the former customers of the brothel. But in Act 4, Scene 2, Lysimachus, the governor of Mytilene, enters the brothel seeking a prostitute, but is introduced to Marina. First, Bard tries to convince Marina to give in to him, but she is no match for this young and steadfast princess. The bard says, First, I would have you note, this is an honorable man. Marina says, I desire to find him so that I may worthily note him. Next, he is the governor of this country and a man whom I am bound to. If he govern the country, you are bound to him indeed, but how honorable he is in that I know not. And then my favorite line in the entire play, pray you, without any more virginal fencing, will you use him kindly? He will line your apron with gold. What he will do graciously, I will thankfully receive. Lysimachus comes in. Have you done? And the bard says, My lord, she is not paced yet. You must take some pains to work her to your manage. Come, we will leave his honor and her together. Go thy ways. Lysimachus says, Now, pretty one, how long have you been at this trade? What trade, sir? Why, I cannot name it, but I shall offend. I cannot be offended with my trade. Please you to name it. How long have you been of this profession? E'er since I can remember. Did you go to it so young? Were you a gamester at 5 or at 7? Earlier too, sir, if now I be one. Why, this house you dwell in proclaims you to be a creature of sale. Do you know this house to be a place of such resort, and will you come into it? I hear say you are of honorable parts, and are the governor of this place. Why, hath your principal made known unto you who I am? Who is my principal? Why, your herb woman, she that sets seeds and roots of shame and iniquity. Oh, you have heard something of my power, and so stand for more serious wooing. But I protest to thee, pretty one, my authority shall not see thee, or else look friendly upon thee. Come, bring me to some private place. Come, come. If you were born to honor, show it now. If put upon you, make the judgment good that thought you worthy of it. How's this? How's this? Some more, be sage. For me that am a maid, the most ungentle fortune have placed me in this sty, where since I came diseases have been sold dearer than physic, that the gods would set me free from this unhallowed place, though they did change me to the meanest bird that flies in the pure air. Lysimachus says, I did not think thou couldst have spoke so well, ne'er dreamt thou couldst. Though I brought hither a corrupted mind, thy speech hath altered it. Hold, here's gold for thee. Persevere in that clear way thou goest, and the gods strengthen thee. Marina says, the good gods preserve you. Fare thee well. Thou art a piece of virtue, and I doubt not, but thy training hath been noble. Hold, here's more gold for thee. A curse upon him, die he like a thief that robs thee of thy goodness. If thou dost hear from me, it shall be for thy good. As a result of Marina's persuasion, Lysimachus has the most complete redemption in the entire play, winning the favor of the king, the hand of a princess, and ruling of the kingdom of Tyre. Now let's take a look at some of the most powerful lines in Pericles, Prince of Tyre. Right off the bat in the very first scene, Pericles knows that if he doesn't answer the riddle correctly, he will be killed. However, when he discovers the real answer to the riddle, he also understands that he would likewise be killed. And so he has to act fast. And he says to the king, Great king, few love to hear the sins they love to act. 'Twould braid yourself too near for me to tell it. Who has a book of all that monarchs do? He's more secure to keep it shut than shown. For vice repeated is like the wandering wind, blows dust in others' eyes to spread itself, and yet the end of all is bought thus dear. The breath is gone, and the sore eyes see clear to stop the air would hurt them. The blind mole casts copped hills towards heaven, to tell the earth is thronged by men's oppression, and the poor worm doth die for it. Kings are earth's gods, in vice their laws their will. And if Jove stray, who dare say Jove doth ill? It is enough you know, and it is fit, what being more known grows worse, to smother it. All love the womb that their first being bred. Then give my tongue like leave to love my head. I also found some shorter, powerful lines that were worth sharing. In Act 1, Scene 2, Pericles says to Helicanus, The sinful father seemed not to strike, but smooth. But thou knowest this, 'tis time to fear when tyrants seem to kiss. In Act 2, Scene 2, King Simonides tells his daughter, As jewels lose their glory if neglected, so princes their renown, if not respected. That is to say, don't rest on your laurels. Still in Act 2, Scene 2, the fourth knight's motto in the contest reads, Beauty hath his power and will, which can as well inflame as it can kill. That was certainly true about Antiochus's daughter. And again in Act 2, Scene 2, King Simonides chides his noblemen about marking Pericles' rusty armor, saying, Opinion's but a fool that makes us scan the outward habit by the inward man. In other words, don't judge a book by its cover. And finally, in Act 2, Scene 3, Pericles muses to himself at the knight's banquet, saying, Time's the king of men. He's both their parent and he is their grave, and gives them what he will, not what they crave. When we return, we'll look at some of the major turning points in Pericles, Prince of Tyre, and correlations to some of the other Shakespeare plays. The first major turning point in this play is when Pericles solves the riddle but realizes he cannot reveal the answer without losing his life. Winning Theseus' hand in Pentapolis and then losing her at sea are two other major turning points. Of course, the last one is trumped by Lord Cerimon bringing her back from the brink of death in Ephesus. Another major turning point in this play is when Marina successfully keeps her honor while being enslaved in a brothel. She does so repeatedly against would-be customers, Governor Lysimachus, whom she converts to a virtuous life, and even Bolt, who is determined to ravish her and take away her virginity, but is prevented from doing so as Marina uses a combination of pleading for decency, giving him gold, and finally demonstrating how she could be more profitable to the brothel as a tutor in the fine arts rather than an uncooperative and unwilling prostitute. Naturally, the recognition scene between Pericles and Marina, and also the reunion scenes of Pericles, Marina, and Thaisa at the end of the play are also spectacular. Because this is most likely Shakespeare's last play, it includes many correlations to his previous works, not to mention, as we saw, to the Holy Bible. Let's start with Gower, the narrator who moves the story and action along much like Horace does in Henry V. Once again, we have Pericles, who mopes through the majority of the play as a melancholy character, not unlike Prince Hamlet in Hamlet, both Orsino and Olivia in Twelfth Night, and Jaques in As You Like It. King Simonides pretends to scorn his potential son-in-law before approving of him, much like Prospero does in The Tempest. Pericles doubts that Marina is flesh and blood, like Leontes does upon seeing Hermione's statue come to life in The Winter's Tale. Pericles starts off the play having to answer a riddle to win the hand of the daughter of a king. In The Merchant of Venice, Bassanio must solve the riddles of the three caskets in order to win the hand of Portia. Pericles is cast on shore after the shipwreck and initially disguises his identity, just like Viola does in Twelfth Night. Prospero and Miranda are also cast on shore after a shipwreck in The Tempest, and Prospero keeps his identity a secret for a while from Ferdinand. Helicanus proves to be a loyal and faithful replacement for Pericles, like Aeschylus in Measure for Measure, but unlike Lord Angelo. Again, we have Dionysa, a wicked governor's wife, who uses poison to murder her assassin Leonine. We saw this attempted by the wicked queen in Cymbeline, and perpetrated by Goneril on her sister Regan in King Lear. Also, Dionysa convinces her weak husband to go along with her murderous plot, as does Lady Macbeth in Macbeth. Marina is lost for 14 years, Perdita in The Winter Tale is lost for 16 years, Guiderius and Arviragus were both lost for 20 years in Cymbeline. Amelia is separated from her children and husband in The Comedy of Errors for 33 years, and Miranda is lost all but her father Prospero in The Tempest for a mere 11 years, and she's a lightweight. Marina's death by the assassin Leonine is prevented by pirates, just like Hamlet. Thaisa was saved by the good Lord Cerimon, and Perdita was saved by the good shepherd in The Winter's Tale, while Hermione was preserved by Paulina in the same play. Would-be assassins Leonine and Thaliard are willing to assassinate, but both are prevented from doing so. In The Life and Death of King John, Hubert initially agrees to kill Prince Arthur, but doesn't go through with it. In Cymbeline, Pisanio agrees to kill Imogen, and Camillo agrees to kill Polixenes in The Winter's Tale, both to placate tyrants, although neither one of them has any intentions of doing so. In Pericles, Shakespeare has the children and parents reunited in the final scene, as we've seen before in As You Like It, Cymbeline, and The Winter's Tale. And finally, T.S. Eliot called the reunion of Pericles and Marina Shakespeare's finest recognition scene, while others have compared it to the gradual and puzzling recognition scene of King Lear and Cordelia. When we return, we'll look at some interesting facts about Pericles, Prince of Tyre. In preparing to do this episode, I did some research and I found some interesting facts out about Pericles, Prince of Tyre that I want to share with you. First, it's the only Shakespeare play where all the action takes place in 6 different Mediterranean cities and in 5 different countries. Antioch, which is located in Syria, led to the rise of Christianity and was central in the spice trade. Today, it lies in Turkey. The real king Antiochus IV Epiphanes lived in the 2nd century BC and was nicknamed Antioch the Mad because of his eccentric behavior. He was the king of the Syrian-Greek Empire until the Maccabees defeated his army. Ephesus is located in modern-day Turkey and features the Temple of Artemis, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. As we see in the Comedy of Errors, which takes place entirely in Ephesus, it was also well known for having conjurers. St. Paul famously included his letter to the Ephesians in the 10th book of the New Testament. Mytilene is part of Greece and is located in the North Aegean Sea. It is the capital and port city of the island of Lesbos. The poet Sappho was from Mytilene, and Aristotle lived there when he tutored Alexander the Great. Although Pentapolis is actually on the northeastern coast of Libya, Shakespeare took some dramatic liberty and moved it to Greece. The city is actually named Cyrene. As you will recall from the First Testament, Saint Simon of Cyrene was forced to help Christ carry the cross. Tarsus is located in modern-day Turkey. Antony and Cleopatra famously met there for the first time, and according to St. Luke, in the New Testament, it was the birthplace of St. Paul. Tyre is located in modern-day Lebanon, and it was an ancient Phoenician port city whose name means rock. In biblical references, King David had trade alliances with Tyre to help him build the temple, and in the New Testament, both St. Paul and Jesus visited the city. Marina's name means woman of the sea, and leonine means lion-like. Pericles was most likely co-written with George Wilkins, who besides being a playwright, was also believed to have had some involvement in promoting a brothel which he owned. He wrote a novel entitled The Painful Adventures of Pericles, Prince of Tyre, 1 year before Shakespeare's play. It's generally believed that he wrote the first 3 acts and Shakespeare wrote the 4th and 5th acts. However, as an editor and writer myself, I frequently clean up other people's work to make sure that the final project is top-notch. No doubt, Shakespeare would have done the same thing throughout the entire play. The character of Gower, who serves as narrator, is based on the medieval poet John Gower, who lived from about 1332 to 1408. Gower speaks in ancient English throughout Pericles, Prince of Tyre, and had previously told the same story in a work called Confessio Amantis, a 33,000-line poem whose title means The Lover's Confession, which was composed at the request of Richard II. And finally, T.S. Eliot wrote a poem based on this play simply titled Marina. Now, before we finish up, I have some questions for you to ponder. Why does King Simonides lie to the knights and send them away, saying his daughter will not contemplate marriage for another year? He could have just told them the truth, that she selected another suitor, and they were free to go. Second, why doesn't Marina tell Lysimachus, the governor of the country, that she was a princess and that she was captured by pirates and sold into prostitution? Even if he was beholden to the brothel proprietors for discretion, surely he would not have condoned human sex trafficking of a 16-year-old virgin princess. Next, why does Pericles stay away from his daughter for 14 years? Once the storm was over, he could have sent his own ships to bring her back to Tyre safely. After all, she was the heir to his throne. And why doesn't Lord Cerimon send letters to Tyre to let them know that he's rescued their queen? Even if King Pericles was dead, Thaisa would still be the rightful heir to their throne. Or why didn't Lord Cerimon write to King Simonides and let him know that his daughter was alive? She too would have been the heir to the throne in Pentapolis. Well, we may never know the answers to these questions, but if William Shakespeare did indeed co-author this play with George Wilkins, then we can only hold him partially responsible for keeping us in suspense for the past 400 years. When we return, we'll take a look at the magnificent actors in the BBC Shakespeare version of this play. Before we take a look at the actors in Pericles, Prince of Tyre, there are several reasons why I keep referring you to the BBC Shakespeare DVD collection when referencing the actors in those particular plays. Although they were recorded between 1978 and 1985, they don't include any tampering with the plots for any political or social agendas, which unfortunately exist in many of the latter Shakespeare productions. Many of the actors in this series are members of the Royal Shakespeare Company, and their performances are magnificent. They include Sir John Gielgud, Anthony Hopkins, Derek Jacobi, Ben Kingsley, Kate Nelligan, Patrick Stewart, and Helen Mirren. Plus, you have people like Roger Daltrey from The Who, Charles Gray from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and John Cleese from Monty Python's Flying Circus. The BBC collection also contains the complete set of Shakespeare's surviving plays, with the exception of The Two Noble Kinsmen, Shakespeare's final play, which was co-written with John Fletcher, and may not have been clearly identified as a Shakespeare work at the time the DVDs were being produced. But you can still find it today. This is the Shakespeare Globes production, which was released on DVD in 2021. Also, many of the actors appear in more than one play, so it's great fun to see if you can identify the same actor in different plays in different roles. I highly encourage you to get the Shakespeare BBC DVD collection if you're serious about understanding these plays and treating yourself to some magnificent performances. The BBC Shakespeare version of Pericles, Prince of Tyre, was done in 1984, and that was not long after the 1982 monumental Life and Adventures of Nicholas Nickleby was performed on Broadway by the Royal Shakespeare Company. As a result, the BBC was able to handpick the best actors from this series, 11 of them that I can count myself, and 5 of them alone that appear in Pericles, Prince of Tyre. They are Edward Petheridge, who plays Gower, John Woodvine, who plays King Antiochus, Lila Kay, who plays Baud, Patrick Godfrey, who plays Helicanus, and Christopher Ravenscroft, who plays, among other parts, the First Knight. By the way, Christopher Ravenscroft also played Orsino in Kenneth Branagh's 1988 version of Twelfth Night, and Montjoy in Kenneth Branagh's 1989 version of Henry V, while Patrick Godfrey also plays Cominius in the 1984 BBC Shakespeare version of Coriolanus. The magnificent Michael Gwilym, who plays Pericles, also played Tullus Aufidius in Coriolanus in 1984, and Barone in Love's Labour's Lost in 1985. Robert Ashby, who plays Thaliard, also played Earl of Salisbury in Henry V in 1979. Peter Gordon, who plays a Lord of Tyre and a pirate, also played Robert in The Merry Wives of Windsor in 1982. Norman Rodway, who plays Cleon of Tarsus, also played Apomanthus in Timon of Athens in 1981 and the Earl of Gloucester in King Lear in 1982. Annette Crosby, who plays Dionysa of Tarsus, also played Maria in Twelfth Night in 1980 and the Duchess of York in Richard III in 1983. Gordon Gestileau, who plays a fisherman of Pentapolis, also plays the recurring role of Bardolph in Henry IV Parts 1 and 2, Henry V, all in 1979, and again in the 1982 version of The Merry Wives of Windsor. Patrick Allen, who plays King Simonides, also played the ghost in Hamlet in 1980. Juliet Stevenson, who plays Thaisa, also played Mrs. Elton in the Gwyneth Paltrow version of Emma in 1986. Roger Bisley, who played Marshall and a pirate, also played Metellus Simba in Julius Caesar in 1979. Adam Curican, who plays the Third Knight, also played Harold in King Lear in 1982, and the first outlaw in The Two Gentlemen of Verona in 1983. Clive Swift, who played Lord Cerimon, also played Thomas Percy, Earl of Worcester, in Henry IV Part 1 in 1979. Patrick Reichart, who played Lysimachus, you may remember, also played Romeo in Romeo and Juliet in 1978. Elaine Sherling, who played the goddess Diana, also played Phrynia in Timon of Athens, and Cassandra in Troilus and Cressida, both in 1981. Rodney James, who played a dancer, also played a spirit in The Tempest in 1980. And finally, the outstanding Trevor Peacock, who played Bolt, also played Feste the Jester in Twelfth Night in 1980, Lord Talbot in Henry VI Part 1, Jack Cade and the Sheriff in Henry VI Part 2, both in 1983, Titus Andronicus in Titus Andronicus in 1985, and the first gravedigger in Mel Gibson's version of Hamlet in 1980. Now stay tuned for when we return with today's trivia challenge entitled Biting Remarks. All right, now it's time for today's trivia challenge, which is called Biting Remarks. Name the play in which these biting remarks are made and by whom. Number 1. I do not bite my thumb at you, sir, but I bite my thumb, sir. Number 2. If I had my mouth, I would bite. And number 3. Teeth hadst thou in thy head when thou wast born, to signify thou camest to bite the world. When we get back, I'll have the answers for you, along with some relevant lessons from Pericles, Prince of Tyre. All right, now let's see how you did on today's trivia challenge called Biting Remarks. You're to name the play in which these biting remarks are made and by whom. Number 1. I do not bite my thumb at you, sir, but I bite my thumb, sir. That was Samson in Romeo and Juliet. Number 2. If I had my mouth, I would bite. That was Don John in Much Ado About Nothing. And number 3. Teeth hadst thou in thy head when thou wast born, to signify thou camest to bite the world. That was Henry VI speaking to Richard of Gloucester, who will become Richard III in Henry VI Part 3. And let's finish up with some relevant lessons for today from Pericles, Prince of Tyre. First, make sure that you stay in touch with people who you value and don't take your relationships for granted. Pericles never should have stayed away from Cleon and Dionysa for as long as he did. Sure, they were grateful when he brought corn with him and rescued them from famine, but 14 years later, his kindness had been forgotten. Don't let the same thing happen to your valued relationships. Second, never underestimate your ability to influence and persuade others. Words can have more power than weapons when used properly. If you'll notice, Marina never shouts. She calmly and patiently told her compelling message and prevailed in every trial she faced in the brothel. The more compelling you make your message, the more effective you'll be in winning people over to your point of view. And finally, number 3, you always want to have at least 5 backup plans. Not everybody does this, and most of the time, they run out of options because they haven't thought their plans through far enough into the future. Just like in chess, you must keep thinking many moves ahead of where you are to prevent from being outsmarted. Pericles did this with King Antiochus, and you should be doing the same thing when you're facing a precarious situation. I'm Dave Romeo, and thank you for watching this episode of Romeo on Shakespeare. Please join me next time when an unprecedented battle is fought between England and France on the field of Agincourt.